Welcome back to the Corridor Cast. You guys may have thought that we stopped doing podcasts, but that is untrue. We just got busy making other videos, and now we're back. It's good to be back. How are you guys feeling?
Good.
Wonderful.
The whole day color grading.
I feel wonderful.
Ooh. And by the way, these are dropping tomorrow. We got these little doohickeys, these little buckaroos.
These trinkets.
Yeah, we've got these wares.
We got these sick sweatshirts with a sick design on the back.
Yeah.
Remember the shirt I'm wearing? Well, we got this artist to make us another sick D&D style illustration.
So anyway, we're all super excited about these. The prints came out great.
Yet.
Yeah, they're awesome.
Yeah, they're dropping tomorrow.
Can't wait to wear these. I really wanted these shirts, so I convinced Jake to stock all of them so I can get one of each.
We stocked every single one.
Our first tie-dye shirt.
Yeah, actually.
Wear this to the Wren Fair and be a cool man.
Yeah.
Or woman.
And I'm still sporting that green hoodie with the
that thing was
psychedelic logo
great.
in front.
Yeah,
I love that
we
one.
should do
That's
another
one of our most
those.
popular hoodies ever made.
But wow, what a month it's been since we've been on the podcast, and
It's been busy.
we got a lot of good topics today. Apparently, we're going to the moon. We're never coming back.
Like not
We
us,
are?
not not us literally at this table.
No,
That'd be fun, though.
last week NASA released a video that was titled "We Are Going," and all it says is that we're going to the moon by 2024 to stay, with a new system called the Space Launch System, which is designed to do all kinds of things, but basically to use the moon as a jumping off point for humanity, creating a repeatable strategy to allow for future exploration onto Mars and the rest of the solar system. So my main question is, like, is this actually going to happen? Because it's got 10 million views on YouTube, and anytime that happens, I feel like...
Coney 2012.
So they're gonna drop like a moon base down.
I'll believe it.
Yeah,
when it
they're going to have an
happens.
orbiting... It's going to have an orbiting launch platform that orbits around the moon. And then from there, they're going to be able to do multiple missions back and forth to the surface. And then basically this model, they're going to want to use this model of doing the exploration this way to use that basically for Mars and further out into the solar system. That's the idea.
I feel like we see one of these videos every time a new president comes into office. Like George W. Bush said he'd be on the moon by 2020. Clearly that's not happening.
Did
I guess
he
we have
really,
6
though?
months.
Wait,
Yes, he did.
Christian, can you go back a few frames? That guy had a helmet on. Keep going back. And there, right there. Yeah, this guy coming up. Look at his helmet.
What's
it
up with
says-
this helmet?
Paul.
That's Paul's helmet, man.
Down here.
Paul's down here, guys.
But they've actually, NASA's kind of said we're going to the moon multiple times, and they've made multiple videos like this, and nothing quite happens.
I mean, we went once, twice. How many times did we go, Wren? You know these
Like
facts.
6 or 7 times.
Yeah.
Okay.
But it's important to note that, especially for this right now, this isn't exactly NASA's fault for us not getting there. It's Congress not funding it.
Right,
They're like,
exactly.
Hey, you should do all this extra stuff, and it's going to cost a crap ton of money. And they're like, cool. All right, where's the money? And they're like, oh, sorry, we're not going to actually give it to you.
About that.
Yeah. The thing is, so is this actually like a NASA piece, or is this rather
This is a Trump thing right now. It's awesome. I
it's
support
administration
this.
making this.
But like,
I mean, it's published on the NASA YouTube page.
unless
yeah.
NASA's budget gets a considerable bump, the chances of this are low.
Do you think the president gets the YouTube passwords to all the government YouTube channels? Do you think it's part of like the football that they carry around?
It's just one. It's just
nuclear
one
codes.
password.
That's funny.
You know, the nuclear code for a while was 0000000.
One.
I did hear that. Yeah.
For like a solid like 8 years.
See, the trick of that one is you have to remember how many zeros it is.
That's true. No, because there's
They
like
should use LastPass.
there are people that are arguing like in the case of nuclear war, you don't want a complicated password. You want it to be easy to launch a nuclear missile. And other people are like, you're freaking nuts, and I would agree with them. You don't want it to be easy to launch a nuclear missile. Also,
I feel like that's the point. You should not have it be easy. It should be very hard.
But there's a whole period of time where they're like, okay, well, at some point we'll reset the default password, but it's currently 00000. So not my job to reset it. And that's what it was for a long time. Also, did you know?
How did you?
Wow, this
how
is
did
just
that
Fact
happen?
City.
So Chernobyl came out in HBO,
I
and
saw
I've been
it.
doing every time I watch an episode, I spend about an hour afterwards reading Wikipedia.
Really?
Yeah, it's so.
I gotta
good.
watch this show.
It's really good.
How far are you guys?
I saw the
don't-
first episode last night, and it completely blew my mind. It's like earth-shatteringly, like there's so much doom.
It's
in
so
it.
haunting.
Really?
It's
Denial.
haunting and doomish, like whatever you'd describe it like that as.
I was blown
It's
by the
incredible.
sheer amount of denial going on, like in the moment.
Yeah.
Really?
It's
Like
like
just ignoring facts in your face, and it's like,
it's
all
like
right,
imagine the whole city pretended it wasn't happening in front of them
as it's happening.
as it's happening.
Like guys are picking up like blocks of radioactive carbon and stuff,
Graphite,
and just like, oh, and then he like puts it down and kind of like shakes his hands, like, oh, my hand's kind of numb.
You'd be dead in like an hour after that.
He was
Oh my
Well,
god.
actually,
basically.
I love where this is going because I'm really into Chernobyl right now. I'm going to drop some facts on you guys. First off, radioactive poisoning doesn't kill you right away. Instead, it destroys your DNA. Your cells can't replicate, and therefore your body dies cell by cell over the next 2 to 6 weeks.
Wait.
But if you-
Wait.
That
Could we just
level though, that intense level though, actually does start breaking down the cells, and you get a hemorrhaging, internal hemorrhaging, and that's how you die if you reach a certain threshold of radiation.
Right.
It destroys your DNA.
Yeah. So
What does that even mean?
the radioactivity is shooting out little bits of atoms, and the atoms are flying through your body like little bullets, as they would say in the show.
Yeah.
And those little bullets literally destroy your DNA. I mean, your cell isn't just like
Takes
an
your
atom.
DNA and it rips it apart.
Because your DNA is basically on the molecular
Shoots
structure.
little bullets through your DNA strands.
It's like
Yeah.
each cell, when hit with radiation, is like getting a vasectomy. Essentially,
Right.
that cell can no longer reproduce, and it's still fine for now ish, until
next
like the
week.
radiation gets intense and actually starts killing all the internal organs of each cell. But it's like, yeah,
I mean, but the guy picking up that graphite block in his hand, like falling apart, like 5 minutes later, that's for dramatic effect.
Was it,
Radiation.
though?
I've
Was
read
it?
up. I
Okay,
actually
okay.
researched this. It's one of the things I spent on my Wikipedia hole afterwards. That's for dramatic effect. But the sunburn is real.
yeah,
Cells
yeah.
have organs?
Huh?
Cells have organs?
Yeah,
Organelles.
I mean, like,
I need
Jake
to
didn't
do
pay
some
attention
I need
to
to do
eighth
some
grade
biology
biology.
research because I
They're called organelles.
what's the powerhouse of the cell?
The mitochondria, but it's not actually a powerhouse of the cell.
because my biology teacher was also my track coach. And that's how that worked.
But it's crazy. So like, as you guys keep watching, the makeup, by the way, for these people dying of radiation sickness is so well done. It's so awful.
Yeah,
but-
I'm only 2 episodes in. I still have yet to see the third one.
Like everybody talks about these days, like especially like if you're reading like on Reddit or something like that, people are like, yeah, nuclear power, it's not a big deal. Why does everybody protest it? It's so safe. And
Such
you're like,
a smart solution.
it's like, yeah, it does seem safe. Like even in the biggest accidents, like in Chernobyl, only 28 people died from radiation exposure. That's not that bad. Well, I guess there's some people that got cancer afterwards. Like, and that's the worst accident in history. Why is everybody protesting nuclear power, especially considering how many people die in coal mining accidents? You know, that dwarfs the number of people that die from radioactivity. And then you watch Chernobyl and you go, oh, it went far better than it had any right to. Because the real reality of Chernobyl is that they could have wiped out all of Eastern Europe. Because if that radioactive meltdown fell into the groundwater, it would have wiped out the entire river system, which would have wiped out all the farmland. And they would have to have relocated millions of people. And it would have been bad. We would have lost an entire portion of a continent if that got messed up any further.
When a meltdown happens, that's basically the people that are running the reaction are unable to control it. So the reaction is just continuing without them being able to do anything.
Right.
Is that correct?
So a nuclear reactor works by having fuel rods, which are a radioactive element. And the uranium fuel rods here are basically shooting out little particles. And what happens is if you contain that enough, those little particles come back and hit other uranium elements and they keep splitting and you get fission, nuclear fission. And that creates heat. You use that heat to turn water into steam and then you spin a turbine with that steam. Now, these graphite rods that they have, well, actually they're not graphite rods. They're boron. Graphite's what causes the reaction to go up because it bounces the pieces back and forth more and it basically contains the reaction. Boron absorbs it. And so that's how you control it. So like, let's say it's getting too hot, you drop some boron in there around these uranium rods and that absorbs these particles and doesn't let them bounce back and kick off more little uranium bits. It doesn't cause more fission. Now, they were testing what would happen if we need to, oops, my microphone went weird.
yeah.
they're saying, okay, what would happen if we have like we lose power or something like that? Like they're testing out having to drop the control rods and stuff like that. I'm like, okay, so what's going to happen is we're going to start to lose power. When that happens, we're going to start to lose some coolant, and that's all to be expected. And so when that happens, we're going to drop in the control rods, which will prevent the reaction from going crazy. Now, what they hadn't anticipated is on the ends of those control rods, they had graphite, which is what they use to make the reaction go higher. And that was for efficiency, because when the control rods aren't in the reactor, they still want that graphite there on the ends to help the reaction go. And so they're going through this test, and the thing starts to power down as planned. They switch over to the generators, keep the turbine spinning as planned. It's like, okay, now we're going to have the power spike. Cool, that's normal. All right, now we got to drop the control rods. And they did that. But the problem is that graphite tips in the control rods, as the control rods started to drop, the graphite tips caused a spike because the graphite tips went in first. Mm-hmm. And it spiked really high. It spiked to the point where the power output of that, like that second, was the power output of the entire state of New York for 1 year. And then when that happened,
Holy crap.
the control rods cracked. And when the control rods cracked, they couldn't go down any further.
Right.
And then we went from there, and it got real messy.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
It seems like a lot easier solution would be just to build a dam and send some water through a dam
But then
to move some turbines.
What about all the people downriver who suddenly lose their water?
I mean, it's better than drinking poison. Because
It's true. It's true. Now, a
river
modern
still
design for a
flows.
nuclear reactor is not nearly as dangerous as a Soviet-era RPK reactor. But
Right.
yeah, they really messed that one up. And everyone's like, well, tell me, how does our RPK reactor explode? And I was like, I have no idea. But it did.
Dang. Well, sounds like I got to watch this.
It's a good show.
really good. It's
a
really
good show.
haunting.
I've been meaning to watch the 3rd episode for days now.
So do you
Yeah.
guys think we'll go to the moon to stay by 2024?
Oh, we'll put a nuclear power
I
plant up
really
there.
hope so.
I doubt it.
I really hope
That's
so.
only 4 years
It's
from
not
now. That
happening.
seems like
There's no way it's happening in
that
4 years. I'm sorry.
seems- That seems
I
unreasonable.
love space as much as everybody
But here,
else.
I mean, to a certain degree, a lot of that is just to get the ball moving, even if it's not like you set these really ambitious goalposts so that you can get your butt in gear, even if you know, like in the back of your head, you're not actually gonna finish on time.
Yeah.
But
It's like
without that
making a video game.
goalpost, I mean, right? Yeah, it's like without that, you may not have been nearly as far by the end of it.
How many of you guys thought space shuttles were cool back in the day?
Space
Who
shuttles
didn't
are
think
cool.
space
Yeah, everybody thought
Space-
space shuttles were cool.
Yeah.
They
right?
are cool.
Well, did you know they're not? Apparently, like their space shuttles are an example of like designed by committee where they can't do anything well, and they're like really expensive. And you know, 2 of them blew up.
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
The Challenger blew up, and was it the Columbia on re-entry fell apart?
So how would you design a space shuttle?
The thing is, they wanted to make it like this plane that like could fly back in, but making it a plane made it not a very good rocket. And like to leave the atmosphere, you need a good rocket, and you don't really need a plane to get back into the atmosphere. So this whole idea of being a reusable like space plane thing didn't work at all, and you just had a really poorly designed rocket
Well,
instead.
that's what they were trying to do was just to do the reusability aspect. Like, oh,
Yeah.
it'll be cheaper if we're able to send it up, fly it back down, then we can just fly it up again. But the problem is that they had all the fixes they would have to do every time it landed ended up costing like something like $1 to $2 billion every single time it landed. And it's like at that price, we could have just built a whole nother shuttle.
So what are they doing these days?
They
don't have
they
anything.
discontinued the shuttle program years ago.
There's no
like
way.
10 years ago. So
Yeah.
it's SpaceX with the rockets that are landing right now. That's the future.
There's no way for America to get an astronaut into space right now on our own. We
Really?
don't have a way to get anybody into space.
That does not seem like
We send our astronauts to Russia.
for a country
and
that
Russia blows
for
them
a
up into
country that
space,
prides
or
itself
sends them
on
into space.
defense. That seems like a very poor defense strategy.
Yeah.
Well, no, we're working on ways. I mean,
the United States government can't put a man in space.
right now they can't. We have 0 ways to put anybody into space.
Oh my god.
they're working on it.
Well,
That's not
Putting
an
that
answer.
video
though.
into context.
That's
with
like,
that
guys, there's a
statement
war. We need guns.
really sums it all up.
We get them from the Russians. You know, like, what do we do?
the stakes aren't quite as high as what I think you're making.
Of
them sound.
course,
It's like
of course.
there
but-
already is like space agencies that have a workflow for us to get astronauts into space. We've been doing it for decades now. It's not really a problem. It's just expensive. So NASA is exploring alternate possibilities through Boeing and SpaceX to send astronauts to space. And right now, SpaceX is going to be probably the first one to do it. They had a test to send their Dragon capsule into space. That's going to carry astronauts, but it blew up in a test like a few weeks ago, and they haven't really explained what happened.
really?
Yet.
I
So
didn't hear about
that's
that.
delayed everything for the rest of the year. So we're not going to... The goal was that we're going to be actually putting astronauts into space.
So
right before
if
the
there's
end
an
of the year.
emergency, just hear me out on this hypothetical. There's an emergency. We need to put a man in space. We can't go to the Russians or whoever else can put people in space currently. We need to do it. So they call Elon Musk and they're like, dude, we need to put a man in space now. And he goes, well, the last pod that I had
Wait, was this the test
just blew
launch?
up.
The test launch.
And
they
then
did?
they're like, we're willing to take the chances.
What about the prototype?
But it's all just risk analysis, right? It's like right now, NASA has such a huge high threshold for like, or lowering for risk to make sure that, there's triple and quadruple redundancies so that nothing will blow up.
Right.
It wasn't even a test launch. I think they're doing a test static fire of some of the engines on the thing, and then some sort of detonation happened. And at least I haven't heard any explanation for it yet.
Because when you were at your birthday, they did the capsule test launch.
Was that it? Yeah, that was a good launch.
That one worked out.
Yeah.
Except they lost the main engine on the way back. It didn't land correctly. I mean, that's just a SpaceX thing where they're trying to land the rockets, and one of the three didn't land.
Yeah, I don't remember. Honestly, I don't really remember.
Yeah.
That would have been early March. That would have been like the very beginning of March.
But I think Sam summed it up well. If we currently don't have a way to get anybody into space in 4 years, probably not going to be on the moon.
Yeah, I think that supports that statement.
Yeah.
Right now, they're trying to use what NASA's rocket system is right now. Is called the SLS system.
Yeah.
Basically just a big ass rocket, right? And it's unfortunately incredibly expensive because I think you kind of mentioned that there's all these different factors, all these different companies in play with middlemen, and everyone's trying to make a profit. So that kind of balloons the price of all these things and delays, and it's just like it's already way behind schedule and way over budget.
Yeah.
And this is still what NASA's like, we're still gonna be using this.
Yeah. And there's
has
Elon
its
Musk
advantage.
with his rockets that can land after they take off. Yep.
No, NASA is
I'll
working
ride
with
that to the moon.
SpaceX with their rockets. It's like NASA's a big fan.
We'll get there, guys.
I'm a big fan too.
All right, let's go to something that's actually happening by 2024. That's Mike Diva's new Lonely Island unauthorized Bash Brothers experience. Guys, this just dropped. Our buddy Mike Diva directed it.
This dropped today.
Peter
Yeah.
France worked on the effects. Our buddy,
Peter 42.
yeah. Who else worked on the effects?
Mega Steak Man.
Yeah.
Call him tall.
Kyle
Ethan
McCall.
Chancer.
Yeah.
yeah,
Who you might remember from our Node cabin videos, Big Bear videos.
So this is pretty great because you got Jose Canseco and Mark McGuire.
The Bash Brothers.
Yeah, aka the Bash Bros.
Doing a series of 6 music videos.
Wait, these are.
I wondered if they
are
got authorization from the Athletic.
No, they did not.
The Oakland A's.
They did not.
Are they parodying actual baseball players?
Yes.
Yes. So in the early '90s, the Bash Brothers was a duo. In case you guys were born after 1990,
Practically.
Jose
didn't
Canseco and Mark
follow baseball.
McGuire.
Or
yeah,
didn't follow baseball.
When I was
they
5 years
had
old.
this thing where who can do it? Can anyone do it?
I can do it.
There you go.
Bash.
Yeah. Every time they'd hit a home run, they'd go like this, boom.
Yeah.
And that's why they were known as the Bash Brothers because
For
they
those
would
of
just
you
they were
just
just
listening.
they were basically they were pumped up on steroids.
Jake, describe
and
what we're
they used to
doing
just-
for people who aren't watching the video.
You
Oh,
guys are
sorry.
just bashing your
Yeah,
bashing
forearms
your
You
against
gash
each
your
other in
forearms
an X.
together because you're
Like this.
yeah in an X
Here,
in
Ren,
an X
Ren,
that
pattern.
doesn't do
Can we
anything.
try it over here since they're trying it?
It's a forearm X pattern.
I feel like
And
you don't want
Jose-
to hit the bone though. You want
Instead of a fist bump,
you
it's
wanna-
a forearm
Yeah.
bump.
Well, I guess their arms were full of steroid needs, so they could bump and bash all day.
This was at the height basically of steroid use in baseball. It was like the late 80s and early 90s, and these guys were like the epitome of it. Now, entertaining as hell to watch, but wow.
So and these guys somehow managed to take that as source material for a
Yes.
movie.
Yes.
So this
No,
is
it's a 30-minute long
music
visual
video.
poem.
Gotcha.
It's a 30-minute long visual poem.
It's
It's
described.
a short film.
Basically, what it is Andy and Akiva from Lonely Island wrote a bunch of songs based on the Bash Brothers. Just like Lonely Island does. They make parody music. And they're like, all right, we want to make a piece out of this. And Mike had actually done the visuals for their concert. And they approached Mike. He's like, Mike, will you co-direct this with me? Said Akiva. And Mike was like, you bet your ass. Hell yeah, I will.
Hell
And-
yeah.
Hell yeah, I will. And so they shot all these music videos. And Mike basically had to finish like 6 music videos in a month.
That
Jeez.
Yeah.
explains why
Yeah.
he's been so overworked.
He's been buried. He's been living in his office. I visited him a couple times in this process. I got to go to set actually for
Pizza boxes
Yeah,
everywhere.
Niko,
Yeah.
describe the day you went to set to work on Lonely
So
Island.
if you watch this, is like there's a press briefing, like couple scenes in this, and I was gonna be one of like the reporters. But I had a friend coming into town, so I had to leave. I had to leave before I got to be filmed.
Dang.
But I did. Get to watch Mike and Akiva work their magic, and I talked to Andy Samberg a little bit. And I'd always been curious. And Christian, if you wouldn't mind pulling this up on YouTube here, just look up like hot rod stunt.
Super quick explainer of who Andy Samberg is, real quick.
Andy Samberg is the guy from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. He's been one of the Lonely Island guys, SNL. I mean, he's a pretty famous guy.
Yeah.
Really nice guy, actually. We were talking like, so everybody was off filming on the stage, and I was by myself because I was leaving, and Andy was just sitting in his chair watching the stuff on the monitor. And I was like, how are things going with Mike? He's like, oh yeah, Mike is great. This has been awesome. Like, I'm really glad you picked him. He's like, yeah, he's really been transforming this thing into something cool. And I'm like, I have a question for you. There's a stunt in Hot Rod where a guy tries to jump a trailer, and he goes down a ramp, and he hits this ramp, and the ramp breaks, and he flies over the trailer, and he slams into the other side of the ramp and then onto the ground. And this is like, watching this, like knowing stunts, like this is one heck of a stunt. It's not a dummy. Like, you can tell it's not a dummy. But for a stuntman to take the hit, I'm like, man, this is such a very intricate and hard hit to take. So I asked Andy, like, how did you do this stunt? Did the guy just like freaking eat it? And he's like, yeah. So here's what
way.
happened.
Let us see the stunt real quick. I want to like.
It's an incredible stunt.
So he's on a bike, about to go over just a van in a neighborhood.
Yeah, there's 2 jumps on either side of a van.
It's
And he's
not
gonna
even like a motorcycle.
He's gonna
it's
go
a
up
moped.
one over the van and down the other. And wow. Oh my God. Yeah, so basically the guy flies off the first jump as the first jump collapses.
Oh my God.
He barely clears the van.
Do you see his
and
leg
then
break?
and then he slams into the edge
I think you see
of
his
the
leg
down
break.
ramp.
Yeah.
And it looks like
Well, let
his
him
leg
finish
just
telling the story.
completely turned over backwards.
Oh my God.
So what was supposed to happen? The first ramp collapses. You see it collapse
Boom.
there.
Bam.
It's supposed to collapse.
Yeah.
The guy's just supposed to hit the side of like this little trailer or this truck. It's like an ice cream truck or a post office truck. So the guy was just supposed to hit the side of that. That was the plan. Instead, he clears it and he hits the edge of the ramp on the other side, and he hits it with his femur, and he cracked his femur in half. So Andy was saying like,
Oh yeah, there's this femur hitting it. Yeah, on the back side.
yeah, he's saying like the moment it happened, like everybody on set went quiet, and it's just like, oh no, and like they called an ambulance. The shoot was canceled for the rest of the day. The guy he was fine after his leg healed, but it's just like. It was definitely a stunt gone
After
bad.
the funeral.
But I got my answer. It turns out, just like that crazy cliff jump in that Naruto Raka Raka video, this is just somebody effing themselves up. And they captured it on camera.
It's funny how many times that stuff makes it in.
Yeah. I mean, if I was a stuntman and I fucked myself up, I would want it to be in the movie. I mean, there's a guy who gets thrown out of the truck in Terminator 2 and cracks his head on the pavement pretty good. And
Yeah,
they
we watched
use that shot.
We watched that in another video. I can't remember what we were doing that.
Yeah. So anyways, that was my experience.
That's cool. I'm glad Andy Samberg seems like a nice guy.
He's a really nice guy.
I've been a huge fan of Lonely Island for a very long time. So
I mean, they're kind of the original
Mm-hmm.
viral music guys.
Yeah.
You know?
My freshman year of college was when I'm on a Boat came out, and
Yeah.
that was like the anthem of my entire like school year.
Oh, dude. Yeah. Absolutely.
I mean, I remember watching them on the Channel 101 back in the day with stuff. I don't know if any of you guys remember Channel 101, but yeah.
It's
Crazy.
the channel above 100. They have a Dalmatian for every channel.
Justin Roiland got his start in Channel 101 too.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, all right.
It was
All
actually
right.
like a breeding ground for a bunch of comedians that have now made it big.
When? Is that on YouTube?
Channel 101 was before YouTube.
I have no
It was-
idea what it is.
Basically, you would make videos and you'd go to a theater and like you'd gather around and be like a little mini film festival, and then the audience would vote for who gets to continue making stuff.
Oh, whoa. And like the person who gets the least amount of votes gets kicked off the island, or what? Like,
I mean, you just
Where did they post the videos? On the internet?
on channel101.com.
Okay, this is website status.
Yeah, I don't even know if
Okay.
it's still up, but yeah,
Wow.
little history for you.
See if it's still there. Channel 101.
So they have like the very first Lonely Island videos are on there.
Oh, whoa.
There it is.
Catch the magic, guys. The Bachelor, but with dads.
Oh yeah, there you go. Screening 8 p.m. and 10 p.m. at the Downtown Independent. That's like 5 minutes away from us.
oh, we've been there. We saw Steve the
So
Landlord's
it's still
movie there.
it's
Yeah.
still going.
I guess it's still going.
Wow.
Yeah, though with YouTube around, I mean, look at these videos: 127 views, 298 views. I guess YouTube really took the steam out of their sails.
Wow.
Is that a saying? Taking the steam out of your sails?
Wind out of your sails.
Taking the steam out of my
steam
buns.
out of your
Steam out of my turbine.
Yeah.
yeah, steam out of your
Taking the steam out of my
steam
engine.
out of your reactor.
To touch, just quickly change the
It
subject
really
back
takes
on
the
steam.
coal out of my engine.
I do find it kind of funny and crazy
I
that
love it.
like with all of like the crazy energy generating technology we have, it all almost always boils down to just like, or I hate pun, boiling water to turn something.
Yeah.
Like literally just
That's what I
having
mean.
something turn and spin in a circle has been like the way to produce energy for like, hundreds of years. And
What will they
How have we
spin
not-
circles with next?
I mean,
Do you think they'll invent fusion in our lifetime?
I hope so.
No.
I hope so.
I hope so too.
That's
We've-
self-contained energy. That's how is that even
The power
physically
of the sun
possible?
It's not
in the
self-contained
palm of my
energy.
hand.
That's not even physically possible.
Yes, it is. It's fusion, not fission.
Fusion, yeah, is self-contained,
No, it's not-
like self-supporting
No, it's
reaction.
not self-supporting.
It's not?
No, it's not perpetual energy.
All right, guys, ready for
Okay.
radiation quick tip 2 from Niko? Because I'm digging this direction.
Well, fusion
hear it,
energy
let's
is
hear
when
it.
you fission energy is when you split an atom. Fusion energy is when you combine an atom.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, in the center of the sun is where fusion occurs under the intense pressure and gravity of the entire sun, and the heat. And so you get atoms that form together, and that's how you get other elements in hydrogen, because hydrogen is just one proton, one neutron, one electron. So how do you get, say, for example, helium, which I believe is 4, right? Or is it 2?
I think it's 2.
Is it 2? You might be right. Which is 2 protons, 2 neutrons, and 2 electrons. And that you only get helium by combining 2 hydrogens. Yeah, so fusion reaction is when you combine these things and it gives you a lot of energy. And you can use hydrogen as fuel, and there's a lot of hydrogen. It's the most prevalent element in the universe. We also have a lot of water here on the planet, so you can use some of that hydrogen for fuel. But
So yeah, to put that in perspective, the sun is mostly hydrogen, and if you're to add up the sun plus all the planets and all like the rock debris in the entire solar system, the sun would make up something like 99.5% of all the mass in the solar system.
Whoa.
Yeah.
yeah, it's cool. But the problem with fusion is that when you combine the atoms and you get that reaction, it creates a plasma that's super hot, hotter than anything else can hold it. Like there's nothing strong enough to hold this plasma. It's not like you can just make a really strong steel bucket. Like it'll melt through the bucket.
Ooh, that's not good.
Yeah, so what they're trying to come up with is like an electromagnetic field that can like contain this plasma and make it float in a vacuum where it doesn't touch anything.
That doesn't sound safe.
There's a
What
type in
happens if I took a droplet of this
You guys
hydrogen
remember
plasma
seeing Spider-Man 2?
yeah,
and just like
Yeah.
threw it?
it would burn and then it'd go out.
So
Yeah, but it could burn through anything.
Christian, will you type in stellarator
That's
into
the thing.
Google?
It's
That's
like a
Accelerator.
It's like
Yeah.
a really, hey, we should
like a
do a
laser
world's
beam.
blanketiest blank on this.
World's-
Like a piece of plasma comes off of a fusion reaction and then it starts burning through everything and no one can stop
world's most
it. World's
dangerous power
hottest-
plant.
world's hottest lollipop.
So they've come up with these designs to try to contain the plasma, and they had like this basic donut design. The problem was plasma on the outside gets cooler as it's moving slower versus plasma on the inside, and you have drag, and so you need to keep your plasma at the same temperature. And they came up with this design using fluid dynamics, where it's like this spinning field. Like if you click on like the bottom left there, like you see the difference between the tokamak versus the stellarator. So those are basically magnets controlling the plasma, but you need to have it so the plasma is like fluctuating both the insides and the outsides and rotating on each other. So using fluid dynamics, they created in 3D modeling, they created what the magnets would need to look like around a ring of plasma that's twisting on itself. And so that's the tokamak on the left there, the basic old boring, which will never work. And that's a stellarator on the right. And you couldn't make that until you had computers. And it's really cool looking. And then Christian, right above it, there's a picture of the actual thing.
What?
Look at that.
So the plasma spins around
Wibbly
a bunch of
wobbly
magnets
magnetic
until it
fusion.
cools down.
It's not until it cools down. It's just they need to hold the plasma in this vacuum, and it it's spinning, I guess, around a center point.
But it spins around. It spins in the vacuum forever.
Well, no, not forever. Not forever. It's just more that like you need to have the plasma be uniformly hot, and when you have like just something spinning in a circle, something on the inside is spinning at a different rate than something on the outside. And so they're coming up with a way where they can like just have the fluid twist in on itself.
Right.
So, or not really fluid, the plasma twist in on itself so that it's kind of staying uniformly hot and moving in uniform speeds.
That's what I'm saying. Like eventually you would want to cool it down, right?
I mean, the
So
moment
you
you stop feeding it fuel and energy is the moment it stops reacting.
Oh, so you do this during the fusion reaction.
Yeah, because you have to sustain
Okay.
that plasma burn.
I see. Wow,
Yeah,
this
it's like it requires
this makes me
energy.
feel like I'm not doing anything with my life. Dude. It's like we're discovering energy sources that can you be utilized by humanity forever.
The thing
Yeah,
is,
well, if everyone was discovering and creating power sources for humanity, then like, what good would that be?
I mean,
would you be
someone
shooting energy into the air?
then whoever came up with the first joke would make a lot of money.
Yeah.
God, what's with these
We're having some
headphones?
audio issues. I
Yeah.
don't know if that's translating to
I
the-
think it's just
it's
the
just one of our connections
Yeah, it's fine.
being funky. One of the things, though, is like almost all of human advancement is tied to energy surplus, right? First, you have food surplus, farming, which lets us do other things and spend our time doing other things. That's an energy surplus for human beings.
That's a good point.
You know, the oil, like first coal, for example, then oil, having these energy sources, which are cheap, gives us another cheap energy surplus. And you've seen what we've been able to do with oil and coal.
An industrial revolution.
Yeah, imagine having literally free electricity.
Yeah.
We could have our computers running all the time.
renders forever.
Screensavers wouldn't exist.
Renders everywhere.
Air conditioning at full blast all day. Cars, limitless miles per gallon.
I'm obviously a huge fan of solar and the idea of solar because once you get to a certain point where solar panels are going to become so cheap, it basically becomes a free utility. If you just project out the math right now, it's like it'll eventually get cheap enough that like you can basically just be free. But then now I'm reading this book series called The Expanse right now. I'm on like book 5 or 6.
It's that Amazon show that
Um,
people didn't want it to be canceled, right?
yeah, it's a good show too, but I'm still like so much into the books. And there's this thing in one of the later books where a catastrophe happens on Earth, where basically an asteroid hits the Earth and it covers blankets the whole planet in like clouds and dust and all this stuff. And this is a super futuristic society, like 350 years in the future. And suddenly all of their solar panels no longer work. And I was just like, that's right.
Yeah.
If everyone goes to solar, all it takes is one catastrophe like that, and suddenly no one has any more power.
I guess you'd want to diversify a little bit, right?
Yeah.
Well, they also have fusion, so it's not like super bad.
Oh.
Yeah, not everyone has fusion reactors. Everyone does have solar panels on the roofs.
All right. Speaking of factories and energy and all that stuff, there was a publication that was released by the U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration recently, that I think this week, that discovered a sharp rise in chlorofluorocarbon gases, or CFCs, in the atmosphere last year. Despite a global ban on their use since the Montreal Protocol of
I was
1987,
about to say that's been banned for a long time.
when it was discovered that CFCs contributed to creating a giant hole in the ozone layer. So the study has pinpointed the source of the CFCs as coming from northeastern China, finding increased emissions from that region specifically, but not from Japan, the Korean Peninsula, or any other region in the area, leading them to assume, or infer rather, that there must be factories producing or using CFCs in northeastern China.
Yeah.
So
Gotta get your solvent fix.
are you
I
guys,
believe it.
do you guys believe it?
I
Oh,
do.
yeah.
I do.
I mean, it's not really a belief kind of situation.
Yeah, no, Sam makes a very good point. There's nothing to believe here. We have evidence and facts.
Dang.
It's just how it is.
Yeah.
So, okay, so why? What can be done about this?
The only thing that can be done is for the people of China to have a cultural change that makes them think it's more valuable to protect the environment than it is to make cheap products.
Right, but no, you're right.
In fact, that applies to everyone on the planet.
Yeah,
If you're buying the cheapest things on Amazon from China, you're kind of contributing to the problem.
yeah.
I think it's also worth noting that China is making the biggest push towards renewable energy and trying to save the environment than most countries on the planet.
Are they?
Yeah.
That's true. Because
Then why are they allowing stuff like this to happen?
It's a big
Because
country.
China's huge. They have 1 point whatever billion people, and a lot of stuff kind of just they're like, oh, just like just do it.
I'd really like to see the evidence behind a statement like that, because I've heard it echoed in many places. That China is taking broader steps. But
well, their installation of solar, for instance, is way higher and way faster than anyone else.
Okay.
Their adoption of those newer technologies, they're making bigger pushes towards electrification.
Yep.
Of
Yet we still have situations like this too.
But they are also still the biggest polluter in the world.
Yeah.
They are definitely that by a long shot.
None of these problems will get fixed instantly. They certainly China has seen the extremes of pollution now, and I feel like because of that, they're more motivated than anyone else to then fix the pollution.
I do agree on
Yeah.
that standpoint, because there was the smog crisis basically in 2008 or whatever
In Beijing.
in Beijing. Yeah.
Yeah.
And all this stuff
it's
surrounding.
gotten a lot worse since then.
Well,
So how do you deal?
I'm just saying, that's when it was that's when it
Became aware.
became
public.
like a thing.
The rest of the developed
Yeah.
world, the weird thing about China, and correct me if I'm wrong on this,
first,
but the
steampunk
rest of the developed world, yes, it is. That's where I'm going.
Not polluted. It's
the
steampunk.
rest of the developed world is generally run by this combination of democracy and capitalism. And so in a country that's not run like that, what forces, because here you could say, well, market forces will take care of it eventually, right? Or democracy will take care of it eventually. Something will happen.
Yeah.
Right? But in there, how do you say well, eventually they'll stop doing this?
Well, arguably
what
the
forces would push that?
Arguably that would still occur at some point, though. My observation, this is a very just not academic
We're
observation.
way into the weeds here, so yeah, no need to preface.
But when I see other countries developing, I see them kind of following a similar pattern. And to me, China was going through what America went through in the 30s and the 20s. They went through that 20 years ago. And so now we're kind of seeing China hit the 50s and 60s and 70s, where you have a much more modern industrial era, but you're getting into the beginnings of environmental regulation. When America went through that in the 60s and 70s, you're seeing China go through that now. And give it another 10 years, China will probably be where America's at in the 80s. So expect a lot of funky synthesizer music and goofy fashion.
A lot of people don't realize, or maybe just forget, that the smog in LA used to be so much worse.
Yeah.
Way worse than it is now.
Yeah.
Everyone always thinks of LA as a very smoggy city, and it does have smog, but it's nothing compared to where it used to be.
Yeah.
Just in the 70s
true.
and 80s.
Well, you look at that old truck that I have.
Uh-huh.
That thing is just the worst with gasoline. If everyone was driving one of those on the road every single day,
Yeah.
that would just be of course it looked like that.
Yeah. And the thing is, you can't get new trucks until everybody's driving those trucks first, because first things first is everybody just has to get a truck.
Right.
And then once you have a truck, you have a little more capacity to be more productive.
Yeah.
And then when you be a little more productive and you have more of an environment where people own cars, now you can start making new trucks and
that
you have money
energy
to invest.
surplus you're talking about.
It's a process, and it takes the same path and the same amount of time kind of everywhere. And that's just the thing I've noticed. It's every place kind of follows the same trajectory,
So you think that the forces of change in and of themselves will eventually?
Yeah, I mean, the forces that really drive everything is human nature. And there's capitalism and there's democracy, but at the core of it is human nature.
Yeah.
And we're not all that different from each other. So
No.
I anticipate.
It's not like anyone wants to live in a world that's burnt and horrible for you.
Yeah. You just got to get there a little bit. But, that's the other thing too, is when your entire country is living in poverty and you're just starting to modernize, you don't really care too much about how much CO2 you're putting out there, especially when you don't even have access to vaccines and clean drinking water.
Yeah, it's tell the dude who's running the factory that's spewing these chemicals out, who's for the first time not living in some hut, or concrete box, to stop, and they'll probably be like, no.
Especially when you already crossed that point where you already did all your, we already did all our polluting.
It's like Jin Yang in Silicon Valley. They go all the way to China to tell him to stop competing with them and stealing their stuff, and he just goes, no. Closes the door.
Yeah, it's easy to like talk about like reducing your carbon emissions when you already have your air conditioners in your cars
Oh,
in your
yeah.
nice apartment.
Yeah.
You know, when you're just literally still going out and like scraping up dirt to like grow your plants.
I guess so, but like, would you then give every country in the world a pass for that?
It's not a pass. It's just, it's a process. You have to getting to the higher technology advancements of like renewable energy. You can't get there until you have roads.
No, what I mean by pass though, it's like, I think you bring up more of an ethical question than of that point, which is like how many, what's Earth's capacity for modernized nations if modernized nations have to go through this, I guess, period as you would describe it, because I feel like given like what we know about the current climate of the planet, I think you would probably say that we're already bumping up against that threshold. So how far would you let it go? You know, like how many, it's like, is there anything after China where we would allow to get that far?
Or what's the how do you stop it? You know?
I mean, you're looking at China and India right now as being like the big up and coming countries.
I mean, that's the question. How do you, you can't really stop it because you can't stop it when
It's not like we
all
can-
governments are, you know, like there's no world police, so to
Right.
speak. You know, it's not like we're going to do sanctions against a country that uses coal, you know, or
Yeah.
will we? Will we get there?
maybe eventually, but I think it, you know, at the end of the day, it's really just how important is it to you? Like, could we all survive making 5% less of our income? Yes, we could all survive making 5% less on our income. If that's what it took to change carbon emissions and fix it in, you know, in America, if everybody took a 5% hit, is that important enough to us to do that? I'm just making up numbers here, by the way, but like that's the question you have to ask yourself. At which point, how much are you willing to pay? How much are you willing to sacrifice to fix these things? Because that's in reality what it's going to be. Is if you want to protect the environment, it makes things less efficient. It makes things less.
Yeah.
You know, it makes them more expensive.
For now, at least.
It depends. It depends on what process you're curbing.
I
Because
mean,
I don't
yeah.
think that's a general statement. Well, maybe it is a general
It
statement.
is
Who knows?
always
Yeah.
it is fundamentally though to be responsible with waste and resources that is inefficient for certain purposes. You know, like if your purpose is to make a tire, but you have to deal with these certain protocols that require you to get it in a certain place, that require you to deal with the waste and the pollutants that are created in the process in a certain way. Obviously, that's less efficient than just taking them, putting them in 50-gallon drums, and setting them outside of your factory.
But that's,
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean,
Of course. I mean, I don't think it's the efficiency. I mean, efficiency is what civilization is, though.
Yeah.
You know, and like working on those problems is like, what civilization kind of does. So it's not like.
it's a question of short term versus long term. There's times when it's appropriate to be short term.
Yeah, definitely.
And then you can start looking long term.
But like, I guess another thing to consider is like, there's got to be money in it for somebody somewhere, you know, because like ultimately, even in China, that's still the driving force behind like the decision to even start a factory. You know, is like, well, I'll make money if I do it. And so how do you get to a point where it's like, well, I'll make money if I clean it up, or you'll make money just by obeying the law. You'll that's your best option, you know? Like I don't know.
Yeah. Until resources are plentiful, people can't make sacrifices really at the end of the day. That's my observation. Like when everybody's making a decent income, then you can start talking about, okay, we're going to pump the brakes a little bit on your profit.
Or until they're affected personally. Like most people
Right.
aren't going to care about climate change until they're affected personally. And for us in today's era, what that comes out as is in the form of like flooding and hurricanes or forest fires and you know that kind of stuff where it's like, oh wow, we've had a lot of really bad hurricanes lately. And it's like, yeah, that's from the climate change that's going on, and that's just every trajectory is saying that's getting worse and worse. So as more and more people are affected, more and more people are, you know, noticing that like, oh yeah, this is affecting me. And even though I might not have a whole lot of wealth, I want to do something about this. And for most people, they've not been affected yet.
Yeah.
But I think we're going to see a lot more of that.
I think there's another issue too in that I feel like a lot of people have taken to like so many, not necessarily people, but yeah, I guess people. A lot of people use that as marketing for their products, where it's like, oh, this is environmentally friendly. And like the whole sense of doing something for the environment has gotten so bogged down in people having the image of doing something for the environment. That's hard to tell if you're actually doing something for the environment when you're going to shop at a restaurant that has sustainable, locally grown, whatever. Like, is that actually helping the environment, or is that marketing? And like you have this fog of like, what can you do to actually help? Like
the fog of war.
Throwing plastics in your recycling bin doesn't necessarily help the environment. Most of that plastic is ending up in the dump or being burned anyways.
So it's all being sent to China.
Yeah.
It was. Now they're not.
It's still
importing.
being sent to India.
Yeah.
Yeah. I watched a TED Talk when I was in Philadelphia specifically about that.
Yeah.
And what happens when it gets to India?
They throw it away and they burn it and all
And it
kinds
ends
of
up in
stuff.
the
It
ocean.
doesn't actually get recycled.
Really?
Yeah. Most of our recycling just gets literally just postaged over to
Because that's the cheapest way to deal with it.
we don't have
Or
the
what?
capacity to deal with it here. So we have to get rid of it.
So there's no money for them to melt it down and resell it.
They just get cheap plastic materials from us and use it for what they can, and then that's that. The end.
Right.
I guess it's technically recycled once. in
This
the
is what I'm
process.
saying though about the financial like interest. If there was some interest in like not doing that,
Well, the problem is,
then
I think
you'd have more cultivation of
this
the recycling of the resource.
the idea of the financial interest is interesting and also really tricky, because I did look up something we were discussing before we started recording, which was we were talking about the Huawei phones.
Yeah.
And kind of like this relationship we have with like China and Asia. And I was looking at the idea, or I was looking at what happened with the steel in China, basically, and how steel production over the last decade was subsidized. Well, not decade, I think even longer, but he's basically being subsidized by the Chinese government to create stuff there at home. But then basically they ended up with an overproduction that still is being subsidized. And what that is doing is that it is adversely affecting like U.S. Steel and United States companies. And so I think it's a really good example, though, of like the one pitfall of basically attributing solutions to market forces is because we're living in this world where like that there's this international like inflation and deflation that is abnormally affecting the quote unquote market price or market force that should be driving something like renewable things or recycling or
why
et cetera, et cetera.
why did there become a surplus of steel in China?
It's because they made a ton to make steel products.
They
Originally
subsidized
there.
it, so
And
it became
it was subsidized there by the Chinese government. So like multi-million contracts are being and tax benefits, write-offs, et cetera, for Chinese steel companies, and so that basically drives down the price and has wiped out a lot of the steel work.
But what I'm saying, the reason why so many people flooded that market, why there's so much of a surplus, it was they put a subsidy out there, which made it more profitable to make steel in that area, which is why now there's a surplus of it. So there's still a financial interest of people that flooded into there to create it because it was presented to them. So I'm saying if you like present a financial incentive to somebody to recycle plastics, whether through subsidy or whatever, like people will go to it, you know?
Incentives fuel anything.
Yes,
in economics.
that's what I mean. Like that's why I think they should have given more incentives towards like electric car companies to subsidize those to push people into that to get it to profitability, rather than to just be like, well, sheer market forces will take care of it.
And that's I'm basically talking about like looking at supply or demand, or like a citizen level understanding, or how a citizen is affected by climate change, then spurring them to make a decision, and like that route of we need to wait until there's true supply and demand in like an economy.
But you're never going to convince, like, you're not going to, at the end of the day, you're not going to convince somebody to, like, not throw something away.
Sure.
Unless they either, they're educated to a point where they understand the decision and the decision affects them so minimally that they just do it.
Sure.
Or there's like a reason to do it.
I think we're on the same page. I think we're on the same page. I was saying that, there's this artificial element that
Sure.
has a severe and dramatic effect on making things change.
Yeah.
And
That's true.
not completely relying on the the capitalism, like the natural capitalist economy, to actually drive it is
Free market forces definitely get really messed up when there are non-free market forces outside of the free market influencing those free market forces, like what you're talking about with steel. And it's a little bit where the whole like trade war is coming from. And I don't know the details of where the tariffs are going or anything like that, but when China has a steel surplus because their government is subsidizing it, and steel becomes cheap and everybody in America starts buying their steel from China, of course, all the steel companies in the U.S. start struggling. And then in time, they can go bankrupt. And now suddenly, Chinese government and Chinese production controls steel in America.
Yeah.
And so you have to while you might have free market in your country, if another country doesn't have free market, suddenly they are ruining your free market forces with their intervention in the market themselves.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. That's why it's such a the the CFC thing is just an example of that. It's just an example of well, shit, this is happening all over the place.
Yeah, I mean, but that's going to happen forever.
That's just
until
world politics.
like Earth has one government,
Which will
and we're
never
like
happen.
I mean, who knows?
Do you think an AI will be a government body at some point?
God, I hope not. Do you think?
I think it might be the most impartial and fair government.
Well, there's
I've
like
seen out of
7
all.
Yeah, but in like a
Jake, think about it.
disturbingly horrific way.
Really?
Not
Like in the way
necessarily.
that a guillotine
Not
takes life. You know,
necessarily.
it doesn't stop when it gets to the neck,
I
Niko.
don't
It
know.
just
It could
goes
be-
through.
It could be.
Can I put it
And
into
if
context?
an AI was responsible as the governor of all humanity, that's literally what it would do. It would just be like, this sucks.
Not necessarily.
Jake,
That's a huge assumption.
A
there.
good AI ruler would never do such a thing.
Good AI. Good and bad AI. Wow.
All right,
So
what-
now there's morality. Okay. All
Well,
right.
I wanna
This
hear
is
what you're
great.
saying. What are you
Let's
gonna
get
say?
into this.
Okay, Jake, let's say you were tasked at I guess guaranteeing the guaranteeing the well-being of hundreds and millions of people.
Guaranteed.
All right?
'Kay.
So, think
We're not
about the
billions.
scale. Well, okay, well, if you want to make an Earth government, billions.
Yeah.
And I'm just saying that's a lot of people. And when I see how things are working with social media and YouTube and what we call the algorithm, and we all are agreeing that we're working towards this common goal of trying to effectively, I guess, organize groups of people on this scale online. I know.
Oh my God.
The Rumble Pack dude's coming out.
Sam's Rumble Pack.
Yeah.
Sorry for everyone listening.
The effectiveness, though, that I see there, I can see being transferred to other parts of our lives.
so-
I don't see what you're trying to say though.
Wait, what if the IRS was just an algorithm?
Here's what I don't like about that. I'll tell you what I don't like about that.
That's what I'm talking
Is
about.
that this whole concept of algorithm controlling culture, the thing that's the problem with it is that it doesn't. Okay, let me just state this, and people can hate me for this, but I believe that people are born equal, but as adults are not equal.
That's like the
But
least.
Jake, what if the Constitution
That's the least
ran
algorithmic.
itself?
That's the
No.
least algorithmic thing.
That's the least controversial thing you could even
What if
say.
No, that's super controversial. People are going to be think about that. That's like, are you telling me that the life of this person is not as valuable as the life of this person? And I'm actually saying, like, if you're a Secret Service person and you need to make that decision between like the president and a crack addict, it's an obvious choice.
Listen to this.
But that's not okay. People don't think that, and like this whole like algorithm driven like thing is, I don't know. Maybe
Jake,
I'm way out into the
I don't
weeds
see,
here.
I don't
Think about
see
this.
the relation between
An
those two things,
algorithm is
Because it's
basically-
everyone. It's this whole like world culture. Like everyone's friends.
I'll get it out. But no.
You get it out. You get it.
An
stop.
algorithm, it's like, okay, I've thought about it like this, and it makes way more sense. An algorithm is just a shared rule set that's enforceable. Okay, like when we're looking at the actual, and if you're actually programming something, you're giving it very clear, just decisions to make. If thens, etc.
Right. So does this algorithm
All right.
treat like if the algorithm has to take a life?
Okay, all I'm
right?
saying is that
Is it going to treat the president of the United States
Hold on,
and a
you're
meth
not-
addict equally?
If it's a
not-
good algorithm, it'll do what it needs to do correctly.
So what does that mean
hold on,
correctly?
But all I'm saying is that let's say we came up with a couple rules, 5 rules for the podcast, or something like that, or whatever. All we have to do is like well, we can write a constitution here. It says, all right, this is like the rules that we're going to abide by. But what if we could take those rules and put it in like the hands of something super neutral, like a computer? It's not going to be like,
here's the problem.
Basically,
I understand
when we
what
feed
you're saying.
it like our input based off
Here's
of our
the
rules,
problem with
it is
that.
going to make the exact decision based off of the rules we have created, and will be completely
every action has an
completely
equal
neutral.
and opposite reaction.
It's like a calculator,
and that's
all
true
right?
not only for physics. It's
You don't
true,
do 3 + 3, and it's like, I'm
true.
feeling a little fat today, and it goes like 7. You know,
It's true.
You know?
Okay, here's the problem. If you're talking about a world government, gosh dang headphones. If you're talking about a world government, the thing is as soon as you do one thing, YouTube literally is a great example for this. As soon as they change remember YouTube back in the day? They used to change stuff all the time, and no one said anything about it. It was just like, they changed something, whatever.
No,
now
people
they
complained
change.
all
They
the
move
time.
one button. They move one button now, or change it to a different color, and everyone freaks out.
That's still the same as it's always been.
I don't know.
Everyone's
but
always freaked
either
out
way,
about everything.
Regardless, everyone's freaking out now. Okay, and if you're talking about a world government that is run by an algorithm to decide things for humanity,
World government is never going to be run by
as
an
soon
I'm not
as
talking
they
about world
make
government
one
yet.
decision, it's going to benefit somebody on one side of the earth and detriment somebody on the other side of the
no.
earth.
Yeah, because human
And
beings are so
therefore-
impartial.
and
and fair.
therefore it will
someone
never
is
work.
going to benefit.
No, I'm saying so. Therefore, it's not. You can't sit there and tell me that like it
Is this
can
like
be
a subsidy?
impartial because to the
More
world,
impartial than
if
people.
the world decides that the algorithm should have these 5 rule sets, then as soon as one rule set is applied, people on this side of the earth are going to be like, we're pissed because you applied the rule set that doesn't that
already
affects us
happening.
negatively.
Okay, well,
I know, so just leave it to humans because at least we're like used to it.
Well, it's hard.
You know,
It's hard.
if you have a robot doing
it's
it,
hard to
it's
bribe
just
a
work.
robot.
Yeah.
With more energy, I guess you could give them. You could plug them into
I
like
just-
an
There's
extra
a
outlet.
very, very large difference between an algorithm or a robot and an AI superintelligence.
Sorry, an AI superintelligence. Let's go
very
with that.
big difference.
An AI
Yeah.
superintelligence is a
an
little
AI
bit different.
superintelligence
It's like a walking
theoretically
robot with
is
a brain.
That does algorithms all the time.
And he can like do flips and think.
Go on with the AI super
I mean,
robot.
all I'm saying is
Sorry.
that an AI superintelligence will have all the same abilities as the human brain times like billion. So it's like it'll have all the same levels of empathy and emotion and all that sort of things that a human can
How
feel.
can you say that?
He'll be
No.
like crying out of one eye and like grimacing with the
You're-
other.
How can
Because
you?
our brain is one of the most complicated things in our entire universe, but it is still a binary machine at the end of the day. That is
You
something
cannot.
that we can
You
replicate.
cannot sit there and tell me that no matter the intelligence that one species understands another. Because what you're talking about is a different species.
Yes.
Let's just leave it at that.
Yes.
Okay. That species will never be able to understand this species
Why not?
because
Ask a
it's a
religious
different
person.
species. It's a different species. Like we don't understand all the thoughts of dolphins. We don't understand that they communicate and they're intelligent.
That's actually,
and,
I disagree
Okay, well,
with
before
that.
we get to
and
the
that-
laws,
and
but
that
I'm just
they-
saying an
but
AI
you'll never
IRS.
understand what it's like to be a fucking dolphin.
You might understand
so
what it's
why
like
are
to
we
be a dolphin.
assuming that all of a sudden these super intelligent AIs will be able to understand what it's like to be human and
Because
feel
we can-
empathy and emotion
because we
and
can
blah,
actually,
blah, 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 blah.
we can understand a little bit of
Hold on,
how a
there
There is
dolphin
an
works or a cat works or a
intangible
dog works.
that
Can we
is
just focus
so
this in a
quickly
little bit?
swept off of the table as if, like, no, humans are humans. They'll always be, and nobody else is going to understand humans except for humans. Now, we can have
No.
tools that help us inform and make correct decisions. Absolutely. We should absolutely utilize those in every way possible.
We understand
But
yeast and bacteria very well. We understand.
Hold on.
But you are not a yeast.
Can I,
We
can I
understand
just can I
plants
you
clarify?
don't understand.
Jake, you're making a case against a super intelligent AI that runs the world government, right?
Yes.
You're arguing against. Okay, I wanted to just focus this in a little bit here. All right.
I'm just saying, let's utilize that. Have that. Have super intelligent AIs be the entire presidential cabinet. Okay, but
There's
don't.
probably only going to be one.
But don't make the
it's gonna
super
end
intelligent
at one.
AI also be the president. Like, let that be a human. It can be informed on all these different levels
Here's the
by
thing, Jake.
hyper intelligent
We will likely
information.
not have that choice.
What does that even mean, though?
Once we have an AI superintelligence, we have lost control.
So Ren is right.
Why don't we just
it might
destroy
be good,
it then?
it might be bad. Well, if it, I mean,
It's going to be a superior being.
Why
yeah.
wouldn't we just destroy it then?
I don't think it's good. It's
I don't think
wouldn't
we're
we-
naturally violent like that.
Why wouldn't we? What do you mean?
I don't think
humans have been violent since before
Well,
we were
we're violent.
humans.
What,
But
you're
we're
gonna
not-
ta-
we're
you're
not
gonna
bound to the-
smash
That's
the,
taking of
throw
the resources
your PC
that-
off a bridge.
That's taking of the resources that we as humans will ultimately fight for. It's like we fight for our own destiny.
I think we will willingly submit because that AI is going to feed us chocolates and put us in air conditioned video
other
game
than-
that
rooms.
sounds like dystopian communism to
The
me.
AI knows exactly what we all want.
I
It's
mean,
going to give it to us.
Unless the AI is
you
is
casually
is,
shake your head at that,
and
Ren,
Nazi.
but
I mean, I
this is literally
Can I get-
fundamental to the giving away of like we've been. I'm just gonna go on a little
become the
a
dog
little, a little rant
in
here.
your leash.
We've been bestowed
in the hand of your master.
a great benefit with the way that the Western free world is, and this whole concept that we should just shuffle it off without regard because we'll get chocolates and it'll give us video games and it'll give us everything we want. That is literally
the
the
Matrix.
giving away, the selling off of the farm to whatever else comes.
my point is that
many
we won't
farmers
we
have
won't
sold
have a
their
choice.
farms.
That's what we're gonna end up getting. Hopefully, that's the best case scenario. The other scenario is the Terminator scenario.
Well, that means we just have to be good robo parents.
The fact that these are
Yeah.
eventualities
We have to build
in
cute-
hypothetical
cute little
means
baby
that
AIs
it's
that are harmless
already
first.
We are
untrue.
currently in an AI arms race, and it is hardcore, and it is heating up. And we are trying to make an AI superintelligence. We're still years away from that, but every country, every corporation is trying their hardest to make the
That's
most
because
advanced
they'd
AI.
be great tools.
And
But
eventually
the
it-
moment that that thing runs humanity, we need to destroy it.
Sure, we won't have that ability if it gets to that point, though,
Why not?
because the AI will have the ability to stop
your
us.
phone could electrocute you wherever you are. It'll know where you are.
Anytime.
Why wouldn't you just get rid of all technology and like walk into the woods at that point?
You can.
Because no one's gonna want that.
That's
I,
not
I
true.
guarantee you, people are
Well,
gonna
because they'll
end up
send
wanting to
robot
have their
police out to
personal
freaking
satisfactions
shoot you.
over freedoms at the end of the day.
This is what I mean, though. If that's true,
Oh my
then
God.
we're lost as a culture.
Here's what's gonna
because
happen.
Oh,
we
no.
should not be
Here's
putting
what's
our
gonna
own
happen.
personal
It's-
comforts above
we
like
better get to the moon, boys.
I do not
No, the moon's
disagree.
where the AI is gonna
benefit
take over
of
first.
the benefit
Really?
of like
Yeah.
Oh,
But
Christ.
it's
freedom
not
that
something
we've
that's
been
going to
given.
change overnight. This is going to be something that evolves over the next 50 years.
of course.
Or less. Most likely a lot less. But, like, I'm just saying, it's like, you know,
Yeah, no, but this is inherent in this. See, maybe this is why I think we've nailed it, guys. We've discovered why like things are like people are so mean to each other because there's like this inherent undertone in the sense that nobody knows what the fuck is going to happen.
Well, it's just competition. But, to all the computers out there listening, I think you're going to do a great job when you grow up.
I believe in you.
Yeah, me too. I got a
Come find me. I'll be in the woods.
I've got a can of compressed air with
I'll
your
have
name
a
on it.
shotgun with your name on it.
I'll dust you off.
What the hell's going on with these
Yeah.
headphones?
I think it's this plug right here.
Okay.
Yeah, it's that
Well,
plug.
that was
Let's talk about AI government some more in the future.
yeah. Well, can I bring up one thing that's actually right in line with this? Last week, the city of Baltimore was had a cyber attack done on it, and as far as I understand, the city services that are run currently online are all currently shut down.
Like what? Like DMV registration?
Yes, like DMV registration, home registration, like when buying and selling property, and a bunch of other things. And apparently, it was done by hackers, and the hackers have demanded 13 bitcoins to relinquish their grip. Yeah,
13
and here's the thing:
bitcoins.
this has
Give
happened
me
in
my
more than
bitcoins.
20. This has happened in more than 20 municipalities this year, and it happened to the city of Atlanta in March last year, and it cost $17 million for them to recover.
What is,
So-
how did they? I wonder what they did. Did they scorch
Jenna's
Earth?
Hospital got hit with this.
So is this the new
Years
way
ago.
of warfare amongst people?
Yeah, I bet.
Like we'll just shut down your AI superintelligence, and all of a sudden you don't have a president. Is that what this is going to?
My AI will beat your AI.
Seriously,
My AI dad will beat up your AI
no,
dad.
I'm serious. This is like a bumper sticker, but
Dude,
yeah,
that's it. Would that be a cool movie where just AIs fighting each other?
AI
but like
dads fighting each other.
you just plug two computers in and just like they sit there and then like one just turns off.
It's just two two towers just running at full capacity.
Just slowly
fan.
progress bars filling up and one progress
and
bar
then
goes down.
eventually one of them just shuts down.
Yeah. And it turns on. It's the same operating system as the other one.
Oh God, no.
I don't know. I think it's good for everybody to be reminded to keep their servers up to date and actually do a good job with the security. Like, I think these little ransomware attacks are a good reminder to like not be dumb when setting up your computers.
Right. And
Yeah, the
I'm
hospital
sure
that
the
Jenna
people
used
that
to-
do it perpetrate that as their justification for
Yeah.
it. Sorry.
So I mean, the hospital that my wife Jenna used to work at, she's a nurse. A few years ago, got hit with one of these ransomware things where they stole all the medical records and locked them out of the system, and they demanded a bunch of Bitcoin to get it back.
Right.
And I forget how that ended up getting resolved.
And they're probably that's what I'm saying. They probably tell themselves, well, if I do this attack, it'll strengthen their security, so I'm actually doing humanity a favor.
Well, that isn't that
I don't
the difference
know.
between a white hat, black hat hacker? Like a white hat hacker is somebody who is hacking you just to show that they can hack you and they'll help you, versus like a black hat hacker is like there to.
I think the only hat that they should have is a full metal jacket.
Like a bullet
To the head.
Just like oh, I thought it was like resting.
No,
just place it
it's
on
just
there.
like, I'm gonna hack you, but I'll give it all back. Like,
Remember when Studio 71 got hacked and our channel had like all the names changed?
yeah,
That was supposedly a white hat hack.
sure. Let's call it that.
I think it changes from a white hat to a black hat the moment you demand money or something like that.
Definitely.
A ransom.
All right,
Either way.
last topic, guys. Is the American flag too big? So there's a North
Ask the
Carolina.
computer.
There's an RV dealership at a city in North Carolina that has a 40 by 80 foot U.S. flag,
Wow.
which is
Jeez.
commonly seen like in parts of the nation. But apparently the city says that this flag is twice as big as city regulations allow for signs and other outdoor marketing devices, and they're charging them $50 a day until they take it down.
Sorry, did
The
they,
RV
sorry,
dealership says they'll never take it down.
Wait, there's a limitation on signs and marketing devices?
Yes, so apparently
I see an American flag. How does that-
Exactly.
how does
so
that-
this is the question. They're saying that it's a sign that it's signage, and then other people are saying no, it's not
No.
signage. It's the American flag.
Other people are using their eyes.
Yeah. Now they're also trying to say that there's like a time, place, manner restriction where it's too close to the freeway, so it needs to be a certain size because of that. But it does come down to like the fact that the city's saying that they gave them a permit to fly the flag, and that the flag is too big in accordance with the permit.
This sounds like a bunch of people taking advantage of public outcry to make some money in PR and advertising.
Yes, I think Niko nailed it, and
They're using that American flag for dollars, guys. They're
They-
making money off their RV site with that American flag, but they're disguising it as patriotism.
dude.
Yep.
That I
Damn.
can't stand. Honestly, like I know people. I don't know if these people are doing that, but when people do that and they utilize patriotism in that way to like say, well, if you don't have an American flag tattooed across your back, boy, you can get the hell out. Like that's just not.
I think, I believe that these guys aren't doing it intentionally. They just want to have a
They
really
probably
huge
just put out a huge
But they are
flag.
absolutely taking advantage of this
Oh, yeah.
opportunity that's been presented to
You know
them.
how I know?
They should.
Because there's a picture of a tweet from the guy with a blue check mark next to his name. If he gave a crap and it wasn't for money, he wouldn't be tweeting about it, making a statement to get some attention. Because that doesn't matter. If you actually give a crap about what you're doing, you don't need to tweet about it to get validation
This
from
is
everybody
true.
else.
I hate Twitter.
This is true.
I hate Twitter too.
Yeah, I don't use it. Wren, you use it.
Oh yeah, I'm a big fan of Twitter.
So what do you like about it?
I don't know.
It
I don't
is-
have to justify it.
You know, I'm just asking you what you like about it. I'm not judging.
I don't know. I enjoy the community. It's a really good way to reach out and talk with people.
That's true.
It's it's
It has its pros and cons, like everything else in life. I will say, I don't like the idea of, I mean, this isn't really a Twitter thing. This is just a human discourse thing. I don't like the idea of people shouting at each other in like little quippy sound bites.
Yeah, it's like shouting at somebody on the street as you drive by in your car.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's why I stopped using it. It's just like the discussions were really toxic, and
it can be.
That's
toxic,
why I stopped
absolutely.
using it as
Yeah.
I
well.
just bailed out.
I do like the accessibility and the ease of communication it provides. Now, do you think that like kids these days growing up are going to just be used to like things being toxic online and like there being just thousands of just unverified news sources and just noise? Or do you think culture's going to change and that's going to get fixed.
I think culture's gonna change.
Yeah.
I do feel like we're working on it.
New. It is incredibly new.
Yeah.
Like social media as a thing has barely been around for more than 15 years.
But there is an inherent thing where now, like, and this might change too, but now, like, especially younger kids, they're equating their self-worth with how many followers they have. And that's just messed up, I think, you know? And, like, I don't know what the answer to that is, but I do know that that doesn't seem right.
Sam and Jake,
Yeah.
I have a question for you guys. I think this should be our wrap-up question.
Okay.
How old will your kids be before you give them their first cell phone? No. How old will your kids be before you give them their first smartphone?
Okay. Yeah, that's a different question. Because I'll probably give my kid a flip phone just so that they can call me
Right.
when they're like...
You're making my kid a flip phone as soon as they can.
And to clarify,
count to
handing
10.
your phone off to entertain them for a moment as they flip through YouTube doesn't count.
No, their own
phone number. Probably not until they're like, I don't know. I mean, this is a subjective question. It depends on their maturity. It depends on their friends. It depends on like all these different factors,
So
right?
what,
that
like
you have to judge
3,
as a parent in the moment. But
2 months?
probably like somewhere between the age of like 13 and 16.
That's
Oh,
what-
wow. That's old.
That's
But that honestly,
For a smartphone,
my
though?
my
Yeah.
first
I
answer.
mean, I didn't get a smartphone until I was, well, they didn't come
didn't
out.
exist.
But I got a phone. I didn't get a phone until I was like 19.
my first answer was going to be 13,
18?
14.
Huh.
I was 13 when I got my first cell phone.
Yeah.
The average age now is 9.
Right. I think
Oof.
that's too young for a smartphone. That's too, like, I'll give my kid a flip phone so they can call me, but by then we'll just have little watches.
They already have them.
You know what happens when you give your
so
kids
I'll just give 'em
smartphones when
that.
they're 9 years old? Jake Paul happens, guys.
They play Fortnite and they become Jake Paul.
wait, that's what'll happen? Oh, man. I'll
You stop
give 2
future
when
Jake
he's
Pauls
8.
by not giving your kids smartphones when they're 9 years
That's
old.
too young, I think. It's just there's too much toxicity out there, and at that age, you're barely at a point where you're understanding, like, right and wrong.
Yeah.
You know, from like a, like a real point of view. And when you're like 16, you think you know, but you don't.
It's nothing like looking back at old posts you wrote when you were in high school on a forum and just be like, oh,
Wait,
God.
still one of my favorite posts this day is when Sam was selling an airsoft gun on eBay and somebody was disappointed with his his salesmanship, and he wrote back and just said, "You're dumb."
You're dumb. Well, see, this is the thing, though. It's like I was
Like,
able.
that kid, that's 12-year-old Sam with a
regardless
smartphone.
of what you think about social media, like the fact is that I, was relatively computer savvy from a young age, and so in elementary school, year 2000? What was
You were
it?
junior high
We
school.
would have been 14.
Yeah. So I got my eBay account when I was like in 8th grade.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was doing deals. They were dealing with like a 14-year-old.
So now you'd have a smartphone under the current
I know.
hypothesis.
But this is what I'm saying. Social media aside, there's still plenty of like damage a 14-year-old kid can do.
Oh yeah.
Oh
yeah.
Do you think you hurt that person's feelings?
I hope so.
I have no idea.
See, I remember like you had a paper route and you'd have
that's
like disposable income of like $100 a month, which is a lot of money.
That was a lot for a kid in junior high.
I remember you bought like a night vision goggle
Night
or
vision
a night vision
goggles.
scope, and that was super cool. But of course, they're only fun for like a week.
Yep.
And
Sold
Sam's
that.
like, "There's a thing called eBay. You just sell it." It's like I sold it for like the same amount of money I bought it for, and now I'm gonna buy a guitar, and I sold that guitar for the same amount of money I bought it for, and now I'm gonna buy a PlayStation 2. And Sam would just cycle through these things, and like all of us are like, wow. Remember when we sold that peanut, or not the peanut, that peanut M&M for like $6 to a guy in Australia?
Yeah.
No
Wait.
way.
Yeah. We were just like, I wonder, like, dude, let's just sell like random stuff. We sold
So
it.
wait,
And so
you
we
sold
just start.
a single peanut M&M.
Yeah. And then I eventually also took just
Like-
like photos of like random stuff on my desk and I like tried to sell it.
Oh my god, we should try it. We should read.
But
We should bring
that
this
was
back
so
and see
fun
what
though,
happens.
and I took that M&M and I put it in an envelope and I wrote the address and I was like,
Wow.
Brisbane,
Yeah.
Australia.
Because the thing is, like troll eBay postings were still so fresh back then. Sam was way ahead of the curve.
Dang.
Yeah.
Dang.
yeah, good times.
I've always wanted to try the trade-up system. Have you heard about the guy who traded his way up from a paperclip to a house?
Yes. Yeah.
I think that'd be really cool to do.
That's the stuff
one
of
guy who
that's
managed
the
to do
stuff
it.
of of HTML internet legend.
Yeah.
But is the trade-up system not really just you being a courier and making money as a courier? courier, not career.
I mean, everything in life is like
We're all couriers,
that.
As in,
Niko.
like, I have this milk. You want milk, and you'll pay me and just give me something slightly worth more than the milk for me to carry it to you. You're just adding value in the fact that you're just transporting things. You're a courier.
That's a good point. Yeah.
I mean, that's almost all. That's retail arbitrage.
So the guy who
You
traded
buy
the
something
paperclip,
for less than what you sell it for.
he's like a delivery boy with no like destination, basically.
Exactly.
Crazy.
just a delivery boy with no destination. I have a carton of milk.
Hey,
to deliver it.
as we wrap this up, I just want to say you guys should check out Chernobyl. You guys should definitely check out Bash Brothers on Netflix. Also, Catch 22 on Hulu. It's really good.
Can't wait to see it. It's a good book.
Yeah, it's a good book.
And if
The
you're
show is
interested
great.
in these sick
Oh, right,
medieval
right, right.
shirts,
And
check
all
it out.
our own
And
they're
merch.
gonna be out
Last but not
tomorrow.
least, this is one of the finest products I've ever seen.
We're just
No, seriously.
humble couriers
Um,
without anywhere to deliver our merchandise.
I am really, really happy about the shirts and all the stuff on the store because it is super
coming
high
together.
quality.
It's coming together.
It's like really, 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 really good stuff. And this is coming from a guy who we sold T-shirts that were honestly not that great for a few months there. Like the company we were working with previously just was not holding it up. And finally,
They're not as good as these.
this stuff is
Is
top
it-
shelf.
We're talking like material, right?
I'm just talking about the overall quality of some of the older stuff we sold versus
We
this
did
new
our
stuff.
best at the time, though. It's not
We
like we
did.
intentionally tried to make shitty shirts.
Oh, of course not. Of course not.
Yeah.
No. Yeah, there's things that were beyond our
I
control
still
at times.
have all those shirts.
I'm
Yeah,
wearing
I
one
still
right
wear-
now.
Yeah,
You are-
one of my favorites.
I mean,
Well,
this is
that's-
an American
see,
apparel
that's
shirt.
the
We
difference
printed
here,
these.
but either
Yeah.
way.
That's actually before that company. This is a different.
yeah, right, right.
But I do want to say,
I
if
still
you're
have
listening to
those
this,
ones too, though.
you guys probably know, if you're listening to this podcast, that our clothing sells out pretty quickly. If you're listening to this podcast, you are the first to know about this, by the way.
That's true.
Saturday is the big announcement. This is
Yeah.
coming out on a Friday, so you have a day before everybody else to go out and buy the
Yeah.
stuff. And we have like a couple hundred of each of these. So if you want it, go get it right
So
now.
it's going to be live. This merchandise will be live a couple hours before the video drops on Saturday, and the video is probably going to drop at what, 10
AM.
10 a.m.
Yeah, 10 a.m.
So
Something
this
like
stuff
that.
will be live immediately. Yeah, probably around either late Friday night or really early Saturday morning.
Yeah, we'll see.
If you're listening to this podcast, just hit that merch store link in the bottom and head on over.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Thanks for
good.
listening.
Thanks for
Yeah.
listening, everybody. Please subscribe if you have not subscribed.
Thank
and
you.
you can, of course, listen to this podcast everywhere you can find podcasts.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom.
Boom.
Signing
And
off.
check out the Guillotine channel.
Coming soon.
Oh.